Hey, 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 I am so happy to talk to you today. Let us talk about journaling. Um, I know it is one of those things that everybody aspires to, and most of us don't do enough of. It is like a theoretical good idea and one that we're like, yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to be somebody who journals. And also at the same time, we don't stick to it and we don't have time for it. And there's all the reasons why not. I have them all too. I totally get it. But journaling as a business owner is different than just straight journaling. Like, I am not a journaler in terms of like, I don't want to put my deep, dark feelings on paper. Like, that's not what I do here. Journaling for business is really about, excuse me, finding a process to think through the things you're doing in your business, having a place to put the things you're thinking that will allow you to keep your mindset simple and clear and make decisions. That's why we journal. Journaling is about sort of clearing the clutter. It's like when, after dinner or in the morning. For me, it tends to be in the morning when you sort of pick up the kitchen and you put the things away that people have left behind and you put this over here and you sort of clear the space. That's what journaling is for me. It's space clearing in my business so that I can do all the things more efficiently. So today, what I want to talk about is the really simple steps to becoming an effective business journaler and how you can become more consistent more quickly, right? So, two things about this. The first is this podcast is coming out on April 9th. On April 11th, I am leading a workshop and then little implementation challenge about journaling. So if you're listening to this and it is soon, please join us. The workshop will be live in my Facebook group on the 11th, which is a Thursday. And then it's going to get followed by an email challenge that's going to last about a week about implementing journaling. And it's about doing the journaling, but also using it to be really direct and do business things effectively. The other thing is that journaling is really about, you know, being effective as a business owner and consistent, but consistency isn't about perfection. So I would keep in mind that as you do this, being perfect at it is never going to be the goal. Okay. So if you're not in my Facebook group, come join us because we're going to start in a couple of days with this workshop and then this challenge. If it's something you really want to get better at and use more effectively, doing it with other people is a really good way to get started. And I'll be around in the challenge and in the wraparound workshop and some other pieces that I'm putting into place with it. So it's going to be a workshop on the Thursday, an email challenge, and then on the following Wednesday, we're going to do a Q&A and some other things live so that you can like get what you need if you got stuck or you ran into something or you're like, oh, what do I do with this? We're going to do all that together. So to journal effectively as a business owner, I think takes 4 steps. They are not actually all even steps. The first step is planning. And it is making some decisions about like what you're actually going to do when you journal as a business owner. My steps are really simple. It's taken me a long time, not a long time, but it took me a little bit of fiddling with it to get it right. And I have a couple of rules. I've told you about these rules on the podcast before. I use these notebooks that are like 5 by 8. My rule is that I never have to write for more than 1 page, and I never have to write for more than 7 minutes if I don't want to. So for me, it's about keeping it small. The other part of what I decided as a business owner is every day that I sit down at my desk to work, which for me right now is Monday through Friday, I write in my journal. Most of the time I do it at the start of the day, but sometimes I don't. And if I don't do it at the start of the day, it's got to happen. It's like brushing my teeth. I've committed to it. And so it gets done. So for you, well, it gets done mostly, and I'm going to get to that in a second. For you, what are the decisions you want to make? Do you want to give yourself 5 minutes a day? Do you want to pick a smaller notebook? Do you want to pick a bigger notebook? Do you want to find your favorite pen? Do you want to always write, make it 3 days a week or 4 days a week or 2 days a week or only on weekends or whatever. Like, think first about what you're actually going to be doing here and what it looks like. That's the first step. Like, what are you committing to? And then also decide how long you're committing to it because, that matters. I am not a believer in committing to anything for less than about 60 days to start with. 2 months is a good start, 90 is even better. But, it's really hard to have enough data to understand how and why something's not working unless you've tried it for more than a couple of days, right? Sometimes we do something 3 times and we're like, it doesn't work. But like we only did it 3 times, right? If you only had 3 chances to ride a bike, it would be like, okay, nobody rides a bike, right? Like very few people and kids get that on the first take or the 10th take, right? It takes a lot of tries. So I think, 60 to 90 tries is a good place to start, or tries over 60 to 90 days. You're going to make some kind of commitment. Then, once you make the commitment, what I want you to remember is your goal is really 65% of it. I know you're like, what? I'm going to commit to 5 days a week every week. Listen, I'm committed to 5 days a week every week, and inevitably I maybe hit 4, right? But I am aiming for 65. And if I hit 4 out of 5, I'm at 80% and I'm killing it, right? Sometimes I'll even write on a Saturday if I'm feeling crazy. But my job as a journaler is not to ask myself to do it perfectly. That's the antithesis of the purpose of journaling as a business owner. Journaling as a business owner is about getting out the imperfect into paper, right? So if I'm asking myself to do that imperfect dump perfectly, like it's crazy. That doesn't work. So for you, whatever you're going to commit to, decide. And then remember that the win is doing it, slightly more than half the time. That's what you're aiming for. So you do not have to commit to 5 days and then actually hit 5 days. It'd be great if you did, high fives, like bonus credit. But if you don't, you didn't, like if you did 3 days a week instead of 5, it's like, all right, great, you're there. You're 60%. You're right where you want to be. That's normal, right? No one does anything 100%, 100% of the time. So asking yourself to do that and then giving up when you don't, well, yeah, that's going to happen, right? Because perfect isn't what we do. So that's step 1. Make your commitment, aim for 65% of it. Step 2, step 3, and step 4 are all actually things you're going to write about. So they all are in the writing step. They're just 3 kinds of things I think go into a journal that make it effective. So the first kind of thing is noticing. I often just sit with my pen in my hand and I think, like, what is the thing in my brain right now playing on repeat? This week, it's I need to do more and faster. Like that is literally the thought I've written in my journal 4 days in a row. And when I wrote it down again this morning, I was like, oh my God, really? Again? Are we here? That's what I wrote next. I was like, oh, this one again. Great. But that's the first thing. It's like noticing what you're like icky about. What's bothering you? What are you telling yourself that's not going to help you? What are the ways you're beating yourself up, right? Pick one of those. Notice it. Be like, I don't think I should be making money. I don't think this is going to work. I don't believe anybody wants what I have. I don't know, it could be all kinds of things. I get all kinds of things when I ask that question. Like, what do I want to notice right now? Notice whatever it is, and then ask yourself if it's true. It might feel true, but let your logical brain kick in and be like, brain, is this actually real? So, this morning it was, I need to do more faster. And I was like, okay, is that true? Well, no, of course it's not, because I'm doing plenty and faster just means it's panicked, right? Like, okay, are there things I want to be more intentional about? Yeah. But that's not the same as more faster. My brain wants me to spend 12 hours where like sitting at my desk more isn't actually going to help me. I'm here plenty. Like more time at my desk is just going to be me being mean to myself. That's not going to make my business more effective. So it's like whatever thing you're thinking, it's people don't want what I have. Is that actually true? right? Do you have evidence that says, yes, everybody I've talked to said this is a dumb idea? Of course not. And you have evidence that people do want it. You have people that are like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, you have people that have bought from you. You have people that tell you they follow you. You have all the things. So use that evidence that you have. That's the first kind of thing. And if whatever you're thinking isn't serving you, that thought that you notice, like do more faster, which is what my brain is offering, pick something else. That's a part of what I do in my noticing step. So today I wrote down that I think it was something like, everything works better when I choose intentionally what I'm going to do next. Right? Like I know that it's not about more, it's about intention. And so it was like, oh, okay, here I am. I feel more centered and grounded because I remembered that, which leads me to the next step. The next kind of writing you do is about remembering. And so for me, this noticing thing is like a third of my page, of my small page. It's like 5 sentences. And then I move on to remembering. I want to remember things about myself. One of my favorite things to write is that I am a powerful creator. I write that down every single time. I trust myself. I trust my business. I trust my timing. I always choose the right thing to do next. Everybody's got some affirmations. These are my little affirmations, and it really serves me to remember them. Like they're affirmations if we know they exist. But if we forget they exist, they're not affirming anything. So this is where I take a minute, and sometimes I write 2 and sometimes I write 12. It's different every day. But I'll write down some affirmations, some like things I want to remember about myself. I help somebody every day. Every time I show up, I make a difference. One of my favorites is that more time, energy, and money are always flowing to and through me. Like they're always coming. I'm just here to receive. I am open to receive. So it's about remembering. And that's usually like the middle third of my page, right? They all fit on the same page. And then the last thing I write about, the last step, is about becoming. So I start with the sentence, today I am becoming someone who, and then whatever falls out is what falls out. It happened today to be somebody, what fell out was that I am someone who is learning to use rest to my advantage, which sounds crazy, but it's like resting helps me get more done. Like I am still internally, as someone who likes to do, trying to wrap my head around the idea that doing less sometimes is doing more. And that is like so foreign in my brain, but I'm really working on it because I know it logically to be true that if I can press less and if I can pressure myself less, that everything else is easier. I know it. And also, I don't always know it. So, that's a thing. This is where you write down who you're stepping into. It's just like a little third of a page reminder of like, oh, hey, this is what I'm aiming at. This is who I'm turning into. This is who I'm aiming to become. And then it feels so different, right? Those are the 4 steps. Most of the time I write a little bit about noticing, a little bit about remembering, and a little bit about becoming. But some days I only do one kind. Sometimes I have lots of thoughts about who I am becoming. Sometimes I really need a lot of remembering, reminding. Sometimes I notice something and I'm like, oh, I got to work this through. And I have to write. I did that the other day where it was like almost a whole page of noticing. And then I just wrote, like, I'm a powerful creator and I trust myself and I moved on. And I closed the book. Okay. This is really important to do all of these pieces, at least a little bit, because together they're magical. Because what happens when you notice is you sort of clear some space in your brain. When you remember, you reconnect to your power and your value. And when you become, you look forward. And looking forward at who we're becoming helps us stay motivated and connected to our businesses. And it lets us sit down in our power and be like, oh, yeah, that's why I do this. Right. And having a regular touch with all of those things really keeps everything else on track because I don't get as sidetracked when every day it's like, oh, wait, I'm becoming someone who doesn't spend time on other people's drama. Oh, And then it's like, oh, I just remembered that. Now I can go back to whatever I was doing, right? Like that really matters. The last thing I would say, and this is just an extra kind of piece here, is that what I often do after I do my journaling is I go post something. Because when I am finished journaling, that is like the most connected and grounded and powerful that I'm going to be all day, probably. It's the most like, hell yes, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is why it matters. It's really good to go out in the world and be like, guys, I have this thing for you from here. It's a really great place to make an offer from. And so I do that pretty regularly. It's often when I make TikToks. Um, I love TikTok. It's really how I connect in and then share. Because often something comes up in journaling, or there was something I remember from yesterday that I wanted to share. And that lets me go out into the world with that from that energy, and people respond to that. Because I am totally me, totally in my power. You can do the same. I'm like clapping into my podcast right now. Okay. So try that. Let me know how it goes. I do have a freebie that lays all of this out. You can grab it from the podcast page. It is in the description of the podcast. If you just look at the journaling freebie, all of this is laid out with examples, with samples for you to try. And if you want to come to the workshop, come into my Facebook group. It's the same name as this podcast on Thursday, and let's do it. If you have questions, you can always reach out on email. I'm happy to connect. From here, like if you're like, oh, journaling, and I have some other things to work out, I coach one-on-one and in small groups all day long. Come, let's talk about coaching. Let's talk about how your journal feeds into coaching and how you can use the both together to really move things faster. You'll make more money. You'll feel better about your business. You'll feel more connected to your people. You'll get to do the things you love to do without so much drama. Okay. Happy journaling. I look forward to seeing y'all Thursday too. And I'll see you here again in 2 weeks.